kinship is the heart of the social structure, and that is why we are doing a kinship diagram, and also why we are going to be working on this kinship DB with TIPS chart. Now, as you work it through TIPS chart, you're going to see a number of principles are used to group relatives together. And by doing that, we can see who is important in that kinship group and who is not considered as important. One of those principles we use is generation. We Americans certainly use this a lot. We can see this by using TIPS chart. Here we have cousins. We know they are all in the same generation as us. If we went down a generation, we'd have our first cousins, our second cousins, our third cousins. If we go up a generation, we have our aunts and uncles, our mother and father. If we go up another generation, we have our grandparents, our great aunt, our great uncle. Up another generation, great grandparents, great great aunts, great great uncles, those kinds of things. We can certainly know every generation by our terms. The Eskimo system is also our system, so they are going to emphasize this as well. Now the Omaha system, note here we have right here our mother's brother, and yet his children are also have the term mother's brother or mother. This tells us that we're not grouping them into that generational distinction, so they're not as important. Same thing with the Crow system. Over here we see the father, sister, and the next generation down having the same terms, because again they're not as important in this kinship system. Another terminology principle we use is sex and gender. Again, we can see that in our own kinship system. We know our father is a male, we know our aunt is a female, uncle, we know exactly who they are and what their gender is. Same thing with our brothers and sisters, but not with our cousins. So this again might tell us that they're not as important to us as these other groups. Another one, the Sudanese or descriptive system has, of course, a term for everyone. They would know everyone's gender in this. Another principle we use is going to be consanguineal or affinal. Consanguineal means related by blood, and affinal means related by marriage. So we can tell, if we look at TIPS chart, that these people are related to us by blood. All this generation is actually related to us by blood. But on this level, we don't necessarily can't tell exactly who's related to us by blood. We know our mother and our father are. But if we just looked at the terms aunt and uncle, we might not be able to tell who is our consanguineal kin or who is our affinal kin. Sean is our affinal uncle, while Pops is our consanguineal uncle. And we don't have a distinction for that. Again, maybe telling us these people are not as important. Yet, if we had an affinal mother, that would be our mother-in-law. Or an affinal sister, that would be our step-sister. Okay, so again, we have specific terms for those, letting us know who's important. One we do not use is sex of the connecting relative. This is something that you learned about in your readings, and that would be the parallel cousin marriage or the cross cousin marriages. Be sure to go back and read about that. And remember, it's not the sex or gender of your cousin that matters. It is the sex or gender of the connecting relative to your parent. So that's why this is why that is what matters. Others we don't use are relative age, social condition, and side of the family. Now, relative age, the closest thing we have to something like this would be baby of the family, the oldest. We don't really use this term when we are describing our kinship, really, but some cultures would have number one son, third child, but number one son, or number two son, fourth child, whatever it might be. Number one daughter, second child. They have very distinct things, and this is a very important aspect in that culture. Social condition, again, the closest thing we have to this would be like widow, widower, divorcee, old maid, something like that. We don't, again, use this term when we're describing our family members necessarily, but this is extremely important, that they're still single, or that they're married, or that they have been widowed, or whatever it might be. This is going to be very important. And the side of the family, again, this is what you learned about when you learned about matrilineal or patrilineal. Again, you're going to have terms to be able to distinguish that difference, and that's because that's what's important to that culture. Some other systems that we didn't look at, but again are found in your textbook, would be the Hawaiian system. You can see this emphasizes ambilineal descent, and then the Iroquois system, more with unilineal descent.